Actually, why not just let it roll? Hello. Welcome to yet another man talks about things while playing a video game, probably badly judging by the track record of the previous one. Which is a departure from tradition, because usually I start these out by just saying I don't remember anything that happened last time, but I vaguely remember what happened last time. Because last time I remember I died a lot. I think I was focused on talking a little bit too much compared to playing the game. So that is what happened. Let me just make sure. Okay, I played my own audio a little bit. It seems like it's functional. Hopefully. Oh, don't walk there. That would have been a... I don't know if you're familiar with this kind of situation. In the business we refer to that as squishma. It's a professional term invented to describe such situations. Yeah, I'll give it a little bit of time, a little bit of warm up for the good old, like, you know, the thing that makes the sound. It's like inside your mouth. I don't know. Vocal cords, I guess, would be the proper name. Yeah, warm up the vocal cords, warm up the brain a little bit for talking, maybe have like a person or two join at some point before I start getting into the topic titular of the video. Could happen. We could hypothetically get into a topic at one point or another. It is possible. We shall see. Hopefully the brain activity doesn't perish in about 3 seconds, which is possible. It can happen. It's happened before where I started streaming and then soon after I felt like I am going to explode, and by explode I mean fall asleep, which I realize are quite different concepts, but the two occupy a similar space in my brain, and that space is a word that I can... Yeah, you know what? I think a word is probably the... a word is probably the way to describe the space they occupy in my head that is similar. Pretty interesting time. I've been... Yeah. I guess to get a different topic going, because I don't know if people will show up from that, but I released another video again very soon after the previous one, which has been it's been an interesting experience, like the having actually like making something and then having a bunch of discussion from it and then making a little bit of a follow-up to it based on the discussion, but like further thoughts in general. It's related to the topic I'll be getting into soon. Which you know what, since I tend to just repeat myself over and over again anyway, so like why not just get into that immediately? Nothing left to talk about. As I've been doing streams like this and just generally trying to talk to people about various subjects for a long while. And a through line that I've developed and I've noticed overall, all of it, and over covering various topics and a lot of ground and discussing things in a lot of detail, is it all kind of comes down to talking not being all that important at the end of the day. Boom, stream over. We don't need to talk about anything ever again, because he said... I realize the title is a little ironic, right? Because it's a... Because, oh look, it's a rambling stream about how there's nothing to talk about, so surely he has something to talk about, because he wouldn't be doing it, huh? Stuff like that. And it's true, I wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for the fact that I have something to say about not having anything to say. Kind of curious how that functions. But yeah, I think words ultimately are less important than I may give them. I might be paying more attention to words than it is actually sensible. I was thinking, because I've been, with the 2 videos I released recently, I've placed like maximum focus on getting into the subject and going deep into it and figuring out exactly what I want to say, exactly how I want to say it, kind of how it's gonna come across to people, then preempting criticisms and preempting various things that people might bring up. And I'm wondering just exactly how much value actually is in a lot of what I've done for that. The reason, like, of course, it remains to be seen, because a lot of the goal was, and the idea behind kind of how those videos are made and what I talk about and how, is to give people kind of the proper, not really context, maybe frame would be a good word. The discussion as I came into it, I'll tie this back into the main topic, but the discussion as I came into it, I figured it's very kind of like people have their preferred side and they stick to their side, and then there's arguments that kind of go. You have the 2 sides. You have the quick play side, casual side. Well, casual side did not do. I did not find that much in terms of a casual side, but you have generally just like sides, and people kind of just have a side, and on that side, this is going to be like the most basic observation about humans, but regardless, on each side you just have like a collection of arguments that people kind of go through in order to support their point, and then this going through is effectively like, you know, the classic funny, oh, we're showing you one, so you have to look at it. But it kind of is like that. Like, there's kind of no getting away. If you're interested in actually resolving issues, and you're interested in actually doing things based on maybe certain thoughts and certain discussions, there's an unavoidable level of kind of like depth you have to go into for things to make sense, because you have a bunch of people, each of which has a certain way of looking at things, a certain way of conceptualizing ideas, a certain like particularity in how they look at a topic and what in particular is important to them about that topic. And so you've kind of extract, like, if you, like, for example, it's worth reiterating things back and forth, because then you have a bunch of different people listening to a thing, right? And they, each of them looks at something from a different angle. So while, for example, a stream format where I ramble and I repeat myself and I go over the same points over and over, it's not time efficient in terms of like, this is not the most optimal way to go through a bunch of points, for example, and like convey a bunch of information that I want to cover. But then on the other hand, it's in terms of exposing people to ideas, I guess you could say. In terms of exposing people to ideas, it's kind of interesting, because you do get to kind of touch a thing and touch a topic from multiple angles, which is like, the more complex the idea and the more, like, the larger the scope, the more important, or like the less kind of, the more out of the box you are trying to get people to think, the more important it is to actually like get the different perspectives and different angles on things and mention. We LARP all the way. Yeah, I'm LARPing as a person that does thinking. That's my current large LARP. Do I take questions on the stream? Sure. Sure. And I don't know, if you ask me something stupid, I will report you to the funny police, and you will be, I don't know what the funny police does, and at this point I'm too afraid to ask. So with all of this kind of conversation, I've generally in life, I've been thinking about talking to people, as broad as that sounds, and well, it is broad, right? Like, talking to people is by no means a narrow category. That happens often in many cases. But it does make me think, like, how actually important is... How many people find it actually really important in terms of talking to them, and how in all of those interactions that you have, how important is the layer that isn't talking necessarily, right? And I don't just mean non-verbal communication, because it's like one thing is what you say and the other thing is kind of the whole interaction, like the facial expressions, whatever you exchange. But I also mean, like, for example, letting someone know that you care about them, right? And you spend some time with them, and the content of the conversation does not necessarily matter for that. It's just... It's kind of irrelevant in a way. Like, of course it's a nice bonus if you can cover an interesting topic, but a lot of the time and a lot of people don't actually really look for that. And if you start going a little too deep and touching on a little too much thinking applied, will actually push people away, because that's not what they want to do. They want to have like a little bit of connection and spend some time together and not engage in like topics that are potentially upsetting. I know this is like revolutionary social commentary, but is this Rayman Legends? No, this is Ori and the Blind Forest. There's a second game in the franchise, but I've never played it because I'm trying to... I guess trying is a rich coming from my kind of gameplay, but I basically said I'm not gonna... I don't want to play the next game until I beat this one on one live difficulty without dying. Which, and I've just been doing this only on these streams, basically. What would your opinion be on Valve adding support for modded in matchmaking systems? I think it's a big can of worms, effectively, to open, because if you... It's, like, already a little bit of that has been tried with 2014 Quick Play, where you have the advanced settings options, where certain settings were added for people to customize. So it's like no crits, no random damage spread was enabled by default, so they had like a way to opt into playing on random damage spread servers, I think, and then you have instant respawn as well. So you have like those little preferences, but then imagine you start adding the various different things you can actually check and customize and look for and pick in the settings UI, and it starts expanding with all these controls and all these options. And the question is also, what do you actually put in that menu versus what do you kind of condemn to only getting players through the server browser? Because that's also an issue that was already kind of a problem with stock quick play, is that like in order from the very get-go in terms of the quick play system, your server had to meet basically Valve type settings, right? You had to run vanilla. At the beginning you had no advanced options, so like even no crits or no spread would exclude you from quick play, and server operators would complain. But then even later you had to, for example, run stock maps only. You didn't have you couldn't run custom maps, and I understand on one hand, because like there's complaints about that as well. It's like, well, do you want Valve to just allow people to, I don't know, like randomly, like new players click on the button and get queued for like Trainsaw Laser? But in terms of options that was actually kind of missing, I guess like custom maps, enable like opt into playing custom maps would be a good toggle to have. But getting back to the point, is if you have, like, you kind of open Pandora's box when you introduce a very important thing about like any software system, and actually not even software system, any system in general that people use, is that the path of least resistance is king, and whatever is the path of least resistance is going to be where your customers or like your users will actually go. So by introducing like a big, stupid, simple play now button, you kind of inevitably take on the consequences of new players especially, acquiescing, I guess would be the word, for that to, as like, this is the game, right? This is the path of least resistance, this is the intended experience, I go, I click on button, I get in game, it's all good. And so that means that whoever is in the main UI that is simple is going to get the vast majority of traffic directed to them. And so it becomes crucial like what your rules and standards are for who actually gets in, and it becomes important what you disallow, because that's going to be directly reflected in the populations of those servers. And so that seems to be exactly what happened. And coming back to your modded servers question, it's like, if you start introducing like a bazillion different options, and you can't have all of them on the screen immediately, because the player, like new players, are going to get absolutely overwhelmed by like the multitude of available options. So you kind of have to maybe limit it to the simplest ones and then have the advanced options menu. But then if you have the advanced options menu, like the question becomes, well, isn't a user that is kind of like engaged enough to actually engage with the advanced options menu, isn't that person also going to be like just willing to use the server browser directly? And admittedly the server browser could use improvements, like I definitely have that to, like that's definitely a real point, but I think there's a there's a line in terms of who uses your system that you made, and the line is between kind of normal users and power users. And the line is not smooth by any means. I think the line is basically the people who are willing to put a bit of effort into figuring out how to work with your system, and the people that simply want to click a button and get what they want. So like they don't have really any inherent interest in interacting with the system itself and like the benefits they could get for the effort. They are more interested in actually just like the system is just a stop, like it's just friction for what they actually want to do, which is play the game, and then the system is kind of in the way. And the extends to server browser too. Well, the server browser, I don't know if you mean, like, because I modded, I assumed servers with plugins. That's what I assumed modded meant. I don't know if you could integrate, like, actual source mods into the default game's server browser. I think server plugins, obviously, is already in the server browser, and then mods, I think, like, require separate executables, so it's basically impossible. Without major architectural changes. You would have to have some kind of system like Minecraft data packs that let you mod the game without actually modding the game. And then you can just, you can have something like that on the server maybe. Oh, somebody could mod in quick play. Do you mean like somebody could, as in like replacing? So you don't mean like, hold on, let me reread the message. What would your opinion be on Valve adding support for modded in? Oh, alright, it's not modded in matchmaking systems, it's modded in matchmaking systems. Okay, so it's like basically allow the community to replace the matchmaker. I mean, what you would basically have to do is you would have to... It runs into the same default option problem that... So it's like, you already can have different ways to find and connect to servers. You have like custom server browser versions. I wrote my own version of a server browser that you can use to find and connect to servers as well, and there's like serverbrowser.tf, and there's additional ones. There's quickplay.tf, which emulates quickplay in the browser as well. So it's like, it's basically already possible in a way, but then the issue that doesn't answer is that for this to work kind of sensibly, it needs a lot of players, and a lot of players means getting the new players and the players that don't really care that much, or they just press a button. And for those people, having, like, it basically have to be a button in the game that you just press and you get into it. Like, of course, every little bit of friction reduction helps, but in terms of actually helping enough to kickstart, because the issue with stuff like this, where it's kind of like it has to be a feedback loop where you need a bunch of people interested first, and then you need those people to stick around and then populate the server so that the next people that join already have populated servers to join, and it kind of like keeps going. For that, you need like a big injection of players, or you need dedicated players that will organize outside of the game and like sign up for sessions and then seed the servers and agree to play and lower team count, basically. I'd say the reason why these website matchmaking is succeed because they aren't in the game HUD-wise. Yeah, like I think people are, in terms of the general player base, like you could ask, is your average Joe TF2 player interested in quick play? I'd say at this point probably no, for the simple reason that your average Joe TF2 player doesn't actually, like, probably hasn't played the game with quick play in it. Like, the word quick play doesn't mean much to those kinds of people. Like, most they can actually get from that is what they've heard about the system. They don't have like first-hand experience, and so, like, of course there's the people that do know and like learn, but I think, because like for the vast majority of people playing the game, they click button, they get in game, and they don't think about it all that much, I don't think. And I don't think this is like an insult to them. It's just like, if you're not interested in the underlying game design or like system design, you just want to play the game. That's the basic point. So, like, would those players accept the benefits if they were like presented and shown to them? Yes, probably. But would they in the abstract have an interest that is intangible and potentially requires a bunch of work and might actually just completely flop if it's badly implemented? It's like, that's a much harder of a question. I think the answer you're gonna find to that is going to be that people just like the eyes glaze over, basically. It's like, whatever, just make the game good, I want to play the game. And so, going back to the default option, if you have a bunch of people like that, then if your option is in the game, like the quick play advanced settings menu, but it isn't easily accessible and visible, I don't think people are gonna click it. HUDs are pretty popular, they are. But then installing a HUD is also just like a one-time action. I guess you could, if you had a mod that you just like click once, install it, and then it's in your game, and it, like, you can add the button yourself, then that lowers the friction a lot. I think that's more sensible. That makes more sense. It's like more possible for that to function. But then on the other hand, it's also, I wonder, because I know HUDs can like customize what the server browser looks like. I don't know if they can customize the functionality of it. If you could, for example, have like a custom browser with whatever, or if you could have a script that like even hooks into an external service, like proof of like concept idea, right? Like it calls into the quickplay.tf API or whatever, and it finds a server for the not possible without DDL files. All right, so it's like that's bannable. Yeah, okay. I think it's an interesting idea. I've not heard it before, but I do like it in terms of like let people. So for example, like you could make a mod that integrates session community server session planning into the game itself if you had that kind of control, where you could make like custom controls or scripts like directly inside of the game, and then you let players like download this zip whatever, they set it up, and then they get like a custom button that lets them see like the sessions and sign up for them or like mark themselves as available. That would be absolutely awesome in terms of like allowing that kind of modding to the game, because then you are not just, you are like lifting the biggest barrier to entry, which is having to go outside of the game and then back in and like sign up for things, etc. And you are just bringing that directly into the UI, right? After, like, you have to go through the one install, but people are already used, as you said, right? The HUDs are, people are already used to that kind of stuff with installing mods, so this was a possibility. Okay, you sold me on the idea. This sounds really interesting. I've not thought it before, but yeah, this is excellent. It would allow people to do like, yeah, as you said, right? Like custom, effectively like game coordination, and more possible as well. Making, yeah, it's open to making TF2 more moddable. So they just completely like let the community run the game in the way that, not as in hand the game over to like some group in the community, but rather literally hand the game to the community, as in like a bunch of people, and then let them do whatever and organize however. That's pretty interesting. It's a very good point. Thanks for bringing it up. Thanks for letting me know. I'll try to beat this section without dying, because I think last time I died like 3 times on it, and it's very embarrassing, so I'll try to shut up for a little bit and just beat this. Might already be Jova, not quite, but we are low. Okay. We hit it! You know what? You can like message me. I'm not gonna currently like VC live on stream. I'm gonna get back to like the topic I was talking about previously. Yeah, speaking of the topic I was talking about previously, nothing to talk about was the topic I was talking about previously. Yeah, I was talking about just would be good to get more people on the idea. Yep. I think I'll post this as I think I'll post this definitely in the like correction section for the first video I made. I think that would be a like wise addition. That's not like big exposure, of course, because who the hell is gonna go back to that video to read the pinned comment, but it is interesting. So yeah, getting back to before I started going into the question, I was thinking about how often you have interactions and you kind of how like talking is a bit of a red herring in that it's not actually that important. It's like you talk with people, but the talking itself is not a big part of the experience or a big part of what people want you to do with them. So it's like talking is supplementary in a way, and I think in terms of convincing people and like giving them an idea of something and like selling them on a concept or whatever is also often predicated on things other than just like raw talking and raw explaining things. A lot of the time, like of course it's important to, well, I guess I beat that section and I died immediately after. I guess, like one thing is selling the idea. So if you have an idea and you want to present it in a way that is the most appealing to people, and that's one thing, but then on the other as well, I think there's an aspect of trust, where people listen to you, people see what you have to say, people kind of see what you're about, and then they kind of outsource their thinking to you. Which I think is basically unavoidable, because it just touches on trust, which is like a very basic mechanism that you have to have any sort of functional society. It's like you have people trust one another, and then naturally people have ways to like approximate that, who's trustworthy, who you can believe from like the first impression or whatnot, or like from how they carry themselves, from how they speak, what they mention. And then the approach that kind of gets you is like, oh yeah, whatever, like whatever that guy said, right? Because he seems knowledgeable, he seems sensible. Like the obvious downside to that is you get people like repeating points or not necessarily internalizing things, but if you get to the point where you have large movements or people generally trying to organize on like a larger scale and get something going that involves, for example, like hundreds or even thousands of people, it's not gonna be possible for everyone to like have the simple, nuanced, well, simple, like complex, nuanced conversation about this and that and the other and all the important aspects in all the required and necessary detail. So you simplify, and you simplify by having like sides and camps, and then people kind of like get into camps, and then at the edges of them you have people who kind of like push the boundary a little bit of like what is this and what is that and how is this defined. And then you have a lot of like conversations that are overtly hostile, and then some that are less so. From those you can get maybe a little bit of additional nuance to consider. And it's like it's not through like any kind of genius, gigantic take or like the best. Like the process has to happen, and it's not just that somebody has to present the correct argument to the correct people. It's also that, okay, I was thinking about this a bunch, and I might tie it in, or I might forget where I got it from, but like when you think about things, and when you adjust to new circumstances, and when you learn, and when you like use new tools, all of that stuff, when you do that, your brain literally physically changes. Like you need the physical machine that is your brain and like your neural network or whatever you call it in the brain to actually adjust and make new pathways and like strengthen and iterate on itself. So it's like there's a genuine, those are physical processes. Like the thinking isn't magical or like detached from physicality, and it isn't instant. You need to, even though it may feel like that, So you do need the time, and you need the buffer in a way. You need to introduce the idea, you need to have people kind of sit with it for a while. You need the, like, you need an echo to be going, because you have like the initial idea you post, you have the initial thing you make, you send out into the world, and then you have people kind of talking about it, and then you have the people like reevaluating what they previously thought through like a new lens, or maybe it's just in the back of their head, but it doesn't quite click until later. And like all of those processes of subsequent conversations and changes in, because it's multiple people, so like the amounts of time it takes for like the brains of those people to adjust and figure things out, it's like a lot of time. And so if you look at that at the scale of like hundreds or thousands of people that you would have in a popular movement for something, it just takes time. And I know this may sound very simple, but I'm considering this in the context of trying to, like, kind of finding the proper place of talking and how important talking and explaining things is. So you have to not only sell the idea, but you also have to introduce it. For example, you can't slam everything on the table all at once, which is, well, kind of ironic given my approach to how I lay things out in my videos, which is to slam just about everything I can think about on the table. I just do it in a structured way, so it doesn't feel like it's all just slammed on the table. It's instead like a structured thing was slapped on the table, so it's a step above just throwing ideas out. So what you need to give the idea space. And then it's also important, because if people are hostile to you, then it takes a longer time and there's a smaller likelihood of them listening to you. And probably a relevant quote or like consideration that I've heard, and I have no idea who said this, but it was a smart man from a long time ago, so it's a valid quote, of course. That it's like something about like people are smart, but crowds are stupid, or maybe it was like less directly insulting. But the idea is that when you have like an individual scale, any conversation can go in really any direction. It might be anything. It might be A, it might be B, whatever it turns out to be for that particular person you're interacting with and you and the combination. But when you get to, once again, a scale of like hundreds or thousands of people, it starts becoming statistics, where, like in mass communication, for example, if you're putting out a message that is going to reach a lot of people, like for example, because I kind of was on that, it's like with the Gold Rush Steam page, if you know, you know. It's like, of course, the message you wrote can be understood given enough time and enough commitment and like the proper context, etc., etc. And in that sense, it's not like it's not understandable. It's more that when you push a message like that and it goes in front of a lot of people, you simply, by a matter of statistics, you will simply have a bunch of people that hear it and then misunderstand it, and they will not be engaged enough to actually like dig all the way in to get the proper understanding. It's not gonna happen. And so it's very important to get the message and the what you put out to be sensible up front, because it becomes statistics, right? It's like every single thing you get unclear and you don't preempt, that's an amount of comments and an amount of feedback and then confusion and knock-on effects of that you're going to have to deal with. And then the more you are able to both answer the questions and preempt what people are gonna say, but at the same time not, like at the same time you have to do it without losing the people who kind of just skim or barely read, right? And then it's also the importance of providing the information for the people that do dig deeper, because those people are going to be like part of how the information you actually want out there is going to spread and be delivered to the next kind of batch of people. You have your, like, I think in marketing, which forgive me for bringing up in in polite company, but it's called like evangelists or whatever. It's like you get some people that really like what you've made in terms of product, and they want the product to reach more people, and those people are going to go out of their way to advertise it to other people. Like, for example, I do that with like Vanilla Fortress, which is a Discord and server and Steam group for getting people on Vanilla TF2 servers. So it's like, because I like the idea and I want more people to play there, I will, like, I'm not paid. I'm not paid by the marketing department. I'll just shout the idea out somewhere because I find it valuable, and then people do that also with various products. So it's like, for those people, you want to make sure that when they get engaged and they are interested and they want to pass the idea on, you want to give them the materials they need to not mess it up, in a way. You want them to understand what the project is about, and then you want them to be able to handle discussions with people directly, because you're not gonna, like, personally, you're not going to actually talk to everybody. You'll need... a bunch of stuff is going to be happening, and this kind of setup just preempts it before it actually happens. You set it up in a way that you get ready and anticipate things, and this is especially important for stuff you make that is going to be a kind of like one-shot popularity thing, because information moves exceedingly fast in the current world, and if you get some time in the mainstream spotlight, you probably have it for a short amount of time. You probably don't have it for all that long. So if you... so you can easily blow it. Like, for example, whatever you start from... like, if you kind of get your stuff out there and you let people know, and then you don't have a kind of net to catch the people that show interest and get in, you might not get the same kind of spotlight and the same kind of space in the mainstream discourse as you would if it was brand new. Because it's already, like, the novelty factor has dissipated to some extent. Of course, like, you can have an update or whatever, like, inject novelty into the equation, but, like, this is a general point, not, like, a super specific one. So yeah, it's like, in terms of talking, it's like all of this, of course, involves talking, right? Because you are communicating with people, but then it involves the kind of talking that's very different from what, for example, a video on the topic does. Right? If you make a video and you contain within it a bunch of points you want to consider, and you, like, collect all of that, you are talking, but you're not, I guess you're not necessarily discussing it with people. And the two have a very different, the two are just very different, and it might not be obvious as to, because if you have like a response chain, for example, right, like people make videos back and forth responding to each other's points, that serves like a very different function than if you had like a response video. The format of what you're doing is also very important in terms of what actually happens and what materializes, because it's a very different format to have a response that kind of like gets the previous thing and then like goes point by point and responds in that way, and where you start basically making your own take on the issue and just referencing whatever somebody else did to the point where it's kind of like standalone from their opinion. You're now hitting a different, I don't know, different experience, I guess you could say. Like a different function for what that does in the discourse and how people see that and how... Because knock-on effect is you have an audience, presumably, if you're doing stuff like that. You have an audience that reacts in some way that is going to then like go into different spaces and interact and talk. And then how you actually do things affects how those people will end up doing things. And so, for example, considering that, what was it? Considering that response format where you go point by point directly responding to someone, it's like that's direct interaction. Like that's gonna get some people in there to like talk, to like exchange ideas. Not necessarily like more or less aggressively, I guess, but the point is you set those people up to... Okay, I know how to call it. The difference is between you set people up to interact with another person versus you set people up to interact with an idea, I think would be the way to approach this. A direct response a lot interacts, like the focus is the other person you're responding to, even if the response is like well made and the points are well formatted and made in a sensible order. As long as the format is like a kind of point by point response, you kind of center the guy you are responding to naturally through just the format itself. Because that's what the format does. You take somebody else's thing and then you respond to it, making whatever you are doing dependent on that and directing attention to it as well. Even if, well, negative attention, right? In the case of calling someone stupid online, a favorite pastime of many people. And so, and what is different about like the other approach is you instead set people more directly on the idea when you don't respond to people. And then that kind of can take the edge off certain discussions, because if people are used to going across certain lines and then ascribing positions to certain people, like of course that bleeds in even if you don't explicitly mention it, but it fosters, I think, a different like atmosphere or creates a different space for how people are going to approach things. And once again, like statistics works with all of this, because you make something that's popular and then you're gonna have a lot of people, like you might decide how a significant number of interactions go, because people will kind of like take whatever ideas you had and reuse them. And so that kind of circles back to like the design behind the videos I made is kind of for that. Like the idea is to embed, I guess that's how you say it, embed certain thoughts and like patterns and important considerations into people's brains, if you want to be like all sinister about it, like to get those things out there and get people thinking about them, so that the next time they talk about the issue or they see a point, like they remember, like, hey, hold on, like this guy, like there was this consideration and that, and it's like connected to this, and so now if somebody comes to me with an idea, I can push back a little, right? But it's not. But at the same time, it's not directly personal, right? It's not like this guy called you stupid and his ideas were good, so he's the authority on you being stupid. It's more so like, here's the actual argument that I've heard that counters this. Like, how do you react? And I think that, in general, pushes things in the right direction, which is why I think more people should do that. I really wish this is just goes far beyond this particular issue or TF2. It's just I wish people more broadly would engage with ideas neutrally, or not even neutrally, but in a way that is much more open. I guess this is like the ancient problem of discourse, where it's like, oh, I wish people were just like doing this and that, and if everybody did things like I want them to do them, we would have no problems and utopia and whatever. But like outside of that, because I don't think that's true. I don't think we would live in a utopia. But just hit people up with ideas, basically. Hit people up with ideas far more than hit people up with responses to them, because like handling the egos of everybody involved is like an additional cost that you can think about. It's like the harder you push into this has a downside, so I'll get to that in a moment, but the harder you push into someone, and especially into ideas that are embedded like deep within, maybe to the point where it's like part of their, for lack of a better term, identity, where they like, I am on this side of the issue, and this is like kind of my tribe. This is the group of people I identify with, and so like it's not, I'm not just arguing when we talk about this topic. I'm actually taking like all the people that I associate with the side, and and then if you directly kind of slam into that with like a response, even if it's sensible and true, if you attack that kind of ego and identity attached, it serves as just friction for actually convincing people. Now, the downside to this, and to kind of considering this, is you end up being too soft. Because sometimes people kind of get in their like lane on their like set of rails they go down, and then if you don't inject a strong kind of push in a direction, you end up having barely any reception. There's like people listen to you, say yeah, etc., and then what ends up happening is you just get I completely lost my train of thought. It's an absolute disaster. I'll read chat instead. A lot of people need to be more objective and rational, and less immediately dismiss if it goes against their initial beliefs. I wish. On the other hand, it's like, I think it's manageable in a lot of ways. I think what I just said about kind of how direct the attack is can take a lot of the edge off, and make people more susceptible to actually like talking about and considering things. Like, of course you are gonna have people who just like walk into the discussion and they just have their own side and they want to like proselytize towards whatever they consider correct, but that's, it's like the age-old internet maxim, right, of ignore the trolls. Very much applies, because on the internet, and very often in real life as well, you don't have the luxury of like just, you know, I don't know, muting certain people. Online I guess you can do that, but like you like somebody's important, there's relationships, there's like other concerns. You can't just like exclude someone because they have stupid takes or whatever. But a very important kind of currency you do have to work with is attention. It's like things you give attention to. A lot of people like attention, and I don't know if all people, of course, like general quantifier, whatever, but it's like people like attention. I like attention as well, of course. It's like there's undoubtedly an aspect to that. I wouldn't be streaming if I didn't like want people to, or like making videos if I didn't want people to hear what I have to say. But that, like in an online space, it's like the classic concept of like trolling and baiting, where you get people to pay attention to you instead of the actual topic of the thread or like the space. And the only real thing you can do about that is not reply. right? It's like you need to not give it attention, and there's basically no way around it. You can't replace not giving it attention. You can't come up with a witty reply or like a takedown that works as well on a troll or on somebody that just wants to say their opinion regardless of whatever anybody else is saying. Taking the attention away is basically the only way to go about it. Because if you have... otherwise you just like... You end up you focus on those people, because like somebody says something stupid. Now everybody sees that it's stupid, so people like pile in with the replies to that, and then you have like this gigantic thread, and then more people see the thread because it's like big and has like buzz around it, and you end up with just a mess. Because now the comment that was supposed to be like the stupid one, and then the one that doesn't really warrant all that much attention, is now all of a sudden like the main topic because it's what attracts the most attention. Like that's what people reply to. So then you have the choice of kind of what you engage with and what you respond to and what you kind of magnify. That kind of goes. Sorry. You're going a bit late and I'm a bit tired, but go for a little bit longer maybe if I don't fall over. If you hear like falling over sounds, assume this, and I stop speaking, assume I just fell asleep live on stream, as the great entertainer I am. So, like the last perhaps idea I kind of had to, and I'd like to spin the wheel on a little bit. It's like myself personally, over time, I've noticed that I become gradually less interested in talking, which I understand. Like obviously I'm saying this on a stream, as with the title, right? Like obviously there's some bit of irony to it, where like, oh, nothing to talk about, but I'm talking about. But I do notice that over time I become less and less interested in talking as like the process and all the considerations and responses, etc. It's the kind of loop of how people go about these things has become somewhat tiresome to me. I think it's because the more I have on my plate, the kind of less tolerant I am of things that fill that plate up in a way that I don't consider valuable enough. And I think a lot of the time discussions that are being had, and especially like the back and forth response format that people sometimes use, is it's a lot less to the point. It serves a lot more of the... It serves, I think, a lot more social functions than it actually serves in terms of like getting to the bottom of a complex idea. Because like of course for like little squibbles or whatever it doesn't matter, but I'm talking about big issues that involve like a large in scope or complex, like a lot of interconnected stuff, a lot of things to understand and consider. It just like the live format, you need to pre-prepare, you need to plan it out, you need to like have the discussion with yourself first, to have all the counters to like consider, to arrive at a proper position, and then like taking that, you get to something that makes sense and is shareable. I completely lost my train of thought again. This sometimes happens when I stream, and unfortunately, no, I like legitimately completely derailed myself. But the point is, you like, yeah, that kind of talking serves a lot more of a social function than it does like actual information and analysis and whatnot. And it's important to understand, because then it's like, the better you understand, the more you understand what you're getting yourself into, and the smarter trade-offs you can make, right? The smarter you can be about the trade-offs you make. You can say that it's like, okay, for what I'm making, this is important because of this, right? Because of this idea. Yeah, the format matters a lot. Oh yeah, and like personally getting kind of disillusioned with like talking about things. So like for example, if somebody came up to me and was like, "Oh, I saw your video. Do you want to talk about it live on stream, or do you want to have this like what?" Because I was thinking about that because maybe it might happen as a possibility, and it's also an interesting thought exercise as to like how I actually perceive what I do and what the importance of it is. And I'm thinking, like, basically the role of what I made has already been fulfilled. It's done what it was meant to do, which is to introduce the concepts and like lay them out and arrange them in a way that makes a certain amount of sense and connect them together. And so, what's the point of me speaking live about this if what I think is the main value about what I do, the main value I think in what I do and what I present is in what I can think through, and what like wrestling with the ideas and then figuring it out something to say about them that like goes in depth and mentions a lot of stuff at once and like connects it together. And that is something that just doesn't work in a live format, because I can't do it on the fly. It requires like double checking, it requires iterations, it requires kind of pre-planning. I need to structure it properly so that all the ideas are delivered in like the proper order, and there's like proper spacing between them, and there's also like tie-ins, like look aheads when I say like, oh, I'm gonna cover this later, or like callbacks to when I said that the first time. So it's like, oh, as previously mentioned, etc. It's like all of that builds, because the way I think about script writing and the way I think about more generally, well, yeah, it's like what I think about conveying ideas in general, which is why I do script writing in the first place. It's like the order goes that it starts from the idea, it starts from the concept, it starts from the something I want to convey to someone, and then whatever I end up making is supposed to be a vehicle for accomplishing that. And so that's what I basically do, right? When I write a script, I have like a set of ideas that I want to introduce, and it's very important. Like the purpose of the script is to introduce those ideas in a way that's comprehensible. And so the reason for having all that like structure and connective tissue and tying back to things I said previously and then calling ahead to things I'm gonna say later and all of that is because it's all in service of finally of recreating, because I have an idea in my head, and it's not, the idea in my head isn't textual, it's not text, I can't just write it out. It's like a certain understanding of a set of things. And so if I want to convey that to people, I need to build all of those connections. Like I don't want people to just remember what I wrote and then repeat it. I want to like take the ideas and show them as they are, like where they are connected, where they are not, like like how those connections are important, etc. and like those like links, because that helps build the full idea in someone's head, not like, yeah, it helps build the full idea into someone's brain, because then it's like, oh, this connects to that, and it's like a part of this, and there's like this consideration, and this is how like party systems tie into it, and then if I have a party system, and it's like, is these concerns, etc. It's like, of course, it's easier for me to actually get into myself because I have all the time in the world, kinda. I spend a lot of time with the script and with like the idea, so of course it's easy for me to kind of jump between the links, but the point is to give the people that consider that a good idea something to start from and bite into, while also informing the people that just like skim the video or just like read it or listen to it in the background, I suppose. And yeah, and I over time I've kind of, in a way, because I'm still working, it's weird to say that because I am still working with words, but in a way it's, to me, like I lost a lot of the interest I had in exploring various philosophical and whatever deep topics. Partly, I think the absolute biggest reason for why I did that, why it like stopped interesting me and I started looking at it differently. It's no longer... everything boils down to it depends. I have a video that I made a while ago that goes through a similar process for objectivity versus subjectivity, which is a topic that, like, it's another kind of disaster topic where people... it's a complete mess in terms of people actually communicating what they mean, because they use the same terms and then whoever you ask is going to have a different definition of that term, which it becomes like a complete mess. And so, like, the way I looked into that, I was like, okay, so like how can I conclude on it in a way that is useful? And what I came to is that it basically depends on what you want to use the words for. Because obviously we are all human and we all have like a degree of subjectivity to anything we do, because we have only our own perspective. We don't have direct access to like the objective perspective. But then for conversations to remain sane and be able to accomplish anything, you have to assume a certain level of objectivity. And the very base of that is inside of language itself. Like, in order to have the conversation, you have to assume that there's like an objective enough shared meaning for the words you're using so that you can use them to communicate. And so, like, this naturally shows the relationship between what's it called? Objectivity and subjectivity. Where it's like you need to... yeah, this ties back to like why I'm kind of disillusioned with like talking about things or whatever. It's like, because looking at that, I'm thinking, like, there's no point in having the conversation in the abstract. Like, I'm not actually all that interested in having the conversation... I don't know how controversial this is to say, but I think like a perfect example of this kind of discussion I'm basically not interested in at all in having is like debating the definition of art. I think that discussion is basically entirely pointless because the question that is, I think, the most important to ask is like, why do you need to know this? It's like, what are you actually trying to define? Because the definition of a word is for a purpose. You want to use the word to describe something. And so you need that word to mean, like, it has a so it's like when you take any kind of abstract idea and whatever it is, you end up having to implement it in practice in some way, to apply it to a particular scenario, to do it in your life, to like whatever, right? So it's like at the point where it's entirely hypothetical. Oh, sorry, I bumped the microphone. At that point where you have the hypothetical and kind of just like go in different directions with it, you have this like massive graph of possibilities where it goes like from this point you can go here, you can go here, you can go there. And it's like all these decisions and caveats and it depends is stacked on top of one another, and you end up with like this complex structure of all the different possibilities. And then when you actually start getting into real life things that you can do and things that you can talk about that have like a tangible effect and tangible result, reality collapses the graph for you. Because it's like, oh, but in this case, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. It's not a case like this. It's like you start effectively taking what used to be like this broad, general, overarching thing, and you start shaping it into an understanding of it in the particular context you're talking about. And then that is what enables you to like sensibly define the word, because there's a purpose for the usage of that word. So you no longer just like drown in infinite caveats, and like you're no longer writing a function with effectively infinite parameters, which is pretty good. Check out objectivism. I probably did when I don't remember what the exact position is, because I'm not super like well into formal philosophy. I'm just like, I'm interested kind of in the ideas and thinking through things more so than formalizing it and like having the camps, but it's also useful to like just like know what other people already thought about in order to not have like massive holes into in your own thinking. But I don't devote enough time to this to actually have like a proper amount of context. Semantical arguments are annoying usually. I mean, it's like on one hand I understand, because it is important for words to have meanings that is like, especially not like the opposite of whatever it is. So it's like, it's important for your argument to not be dependent on just like redefining a term people use. You could call that clickbait effectively, right? Or because you just take a word and then people have like this whole gigantic amount of baggage attached to that word, and then you use that word but in a way that isn't conventional. I actually, that's kind of what I do this effectively in my latest video, kind of, because I take skill-based matchmaking and I end up with a proposition that throws out team balancing, like not strongly, because I'm not super conclusive on it, but generally like my recommendation would be don't have the matchmaker assemble teams. And you can easily take that to say, well, that's not SBMM anymore, like you are not making matches actually, you are just like, it's like, oh, it's a lobby coordinator, like a lobby maker, skill-based lobby maker, or like skill-based game coordination is what I thought maybe would be a good idea. But it's still like, it still does make matches, as in like you still have people, they get put in a match and then they play the match, and it uses a skill approximation, so like it fits the definition. But I made sure to signpost this and like make it clear from the very beginning of the argument, so that, because I would not want to bait and switch people like that. I want them to, from the get-go in the video, be able to understand that this is what I'm doing. It's like, look, this is the definition, this is like what most people understand by it, this is why I am thinking about something else, this is what I'm considering. And you kind of just through that explain to people what the idea is and how it like ties to what they may understand by the term. And then it is no longer a semantic only argument. You are not just saying, oh, I get to redefine this word because whatever. It's more so, I want to be precise about things, and then if we are using this word and this term and it like skill-based matchmaking, like it's skill-based and it's matchmaking, and there's a system that matches both components, then it's like at that point the question is, like, are you trying to argue that, because you could take it both ways. You could take it like, oh, are you trying to argue that SBMM belongs as long as it's not really SBMM, or you could argue it in another way. It's like, do you mean that, like, I could turn it around and say like, oh, do you say that like there can only be one implementation of SBMM and it's the one you think of, and it's like no other implementations are actually properly allowed? You cannot, because like you have the one implementation of like this is how it works. It's gonna kill me. Oh, excellent. You've been streaming for a while, just getting to this. Gooding, I have been indeed. Not quite falling over and dying yet, but I have been talking for a while. Well, I guess an hour and 15 minutes isn't that long a while. Depending on your point of view, I suppose. It's I've been talking about interesting stuff, in my humble opinion, which of course is unbiased and objective. How could I possibly be biased about my own opinions? I am the best source you have for what my opinions are. No? This is a trick question, because it assumes people don't lie. Or at least at least it assumes I don't lie, which is, I try not to do it, but who knows. Although, it's like, oh, who knows? It's like, no, I should know, because like, lying implies intentionality. It's like, so it's like, I don't lie, because I don't intentionally say things that are wrong. And if I do say things that are wrong, it's not lying, it's being wrong. But to be actually realistic, like, as you can read in the title of the stream, there's nothing left to talk about, so... I do like how the title reads as well, because I phrased it as, I think, the nothing left to talk about. So it's like not exactly... It's the nothing to talk about. Which, now that I've explored the topic a bunch and like I talked and like mentioned things, it makes less sense than when I initially thought about it, but I still think it's kind of interesting in terms of like conveying what I'm thinking at the moment. Because in a way, a lot of doing stuff is not the same as talking. Also, it's like, oh yeah, I know. I have another thought I wanted to mention. It's like other ways of conveying things and kind of like getting to the point. It's like show don't tell, but applied to a lot of stuff in life in general. It's like a lot of the time you can just show people certain things by, for example, how you act or like giving them a certain experience. I think like this is a big part of what people try to do with art and like various ways of expression. So because there's things that you don't necessarily express with words and talking, and so like at a certain point when you want to show somebody, it's like, oh, this style, for example, could be evolved in this way and it would be really cool. So it's like, you can describe it, you can make like mock-ups or whatever, but at the end of the day, if you want to actually be the most kind of direct to the point and understandable, you end up making it. You take it, you evolve it, and you show people like, yes, this idea had potential because look what I did with it, right? And then that is kind of like, that iterates on itself, because then further people can take what you made, iterate on that, and show others. And it like becomes... It involves a lot less talking than it does making. And that's been my general shift in attitude in terms of things. Of course, making things, especially with other people, involves talking. Like, you're not getting away from talking one way or the other, but the point is different, right? The goal is different, or... Like, you talk for a reason. You don't talk or explore a topic just to explore the topic. There's a broader point to what you're trying to understand and, like, get at. And it's interesting because it keeps you grounded. It keeps you more grounded when whatever you are, like I just was talking about, having this gigantic graph built out of, like when you start theorizing and philosophizing, you have this like gigantic graph of it depends and like if this then that and all these options, and then reality collapses that for you. And so like there's a limit for how much it actually makes sense to think things through, because at a certain point you just hit diminishing returns. It's like you might think over the idea, and it's also nice to have feedback and get and interact with other people in terms of the ideas you have. So it's like then you will never get it perfect because you won't think about everything, so then you might as well like get it to a level of quality that is acceptable and then just shove it out the door so that you can get to the feedback and then understanding the subject better and then maybe making a new iteration. And like in that sense, it also helps you, that kind of approach, going back to like do not feed the trolls, that kind of approach also helps you filter like whose reply is sensible and whose reply, or like whatever comment or any other interaction, it's like what is worthwhile about these. Because you can have like a lot of people interested in contacting you and talking about various things, but it's not by itself important to talk to everybody about everything. And if you understand what you're doing and why and what the crucial components are, then you can decide, like, is this guy actually worth talking to? Or is this guy just, like, posting his opinion, for example, about, like, posting his own opinion and not really caring about what you have to say? And then you weigh that against, it's like, okay, my goal, for example, is to let people know about these things, and if people see this comment and I don't leave a reply, they might think, oh, like this is the argument that defeats the position presented, when it actually doesn't. It's just it was deemed too stupid to respond to, or like lackluster or whatever. Didn't quite reach. Alright, I think I'll need to start thinking about going to bed very soon, because I can feel in real time that my brain cells are disconnecting from one another. It's like it's not a good kind of state to be in terms of if I'm trying to like speak about things. I might revisit this topic. I think because I do this sometimes with when I think I've maybe stumbled upon something interesting, I'll review my own VOD and then like figure out if there's anything more to the ADS, or like if I can kind of dig a little bit deeper. So I'll probably take a listen to whatever I've said here and then figure out what to do with it, because it's an interesting topic, an interesting subject. Alright, I'll get to like I think I don't know. I'll get back to the gate above and then save afterwards, and I think I'm gonna go off. Because it is a little late and I am a little sleepy. This gate. A complete side note, but I still greatly enjoy how this game is. It's very... Oh, you just got here? Okay. Maybe you can revive me falling asleep. Fine, I'll go a little bit longer. So I don't know what I'll say though, because I mentally... almost said I mentally disabled myself, but I think that carries with it implications that I don't necessarily intend to produce. To produce? No, that's the problem. I'm losing my grip on the English language. That's alright. Now I'll try. I'll try a little bit. Blah blah blah. I'll try a little bit longer. Maybe it will result in funny stuff happening, such as being completely unable to string together a sentence while desperately trying to, convey something meaningful. It's possible. It's been an interesting month, or like longer, I guess, because it's been a while since I like started. Oh, this might get my brain going. It's actually been a while since I started kind of research for the first of the 2 videos I made about like the quick play versus casual stuff. Is how late is it? It's like midnight, surely. Let me check. It's basically midnight on the dot. That's alright. I don't have work tomorrow, so we can make that happen. I can just sleep. Little known fact: you can sleep. It's allowed. I guess the both of us never went to bed. Oh yeah, from Gold Rush, right? Wait, were you in Gold Rush? This is how terrible I have dementia. I have Alzheimer's. I have every disease known to man in terms of memory. It's an absolute disaster. Me trying to remember like a single thing about anything ever. I do like feel like I live in the kind of. Oh yeah, you were alright. I thought so, but like I can't trust my brain to remember information. I feel like I live in like an eternal present where like things just keep happening and I'm kind of just there and I'm looking at the things happening and there's not much in terms of like a reaction or whatever. It's just like, and then I don't remember them happening and they don't feel real because then there's just the next thing. So I've kind of gotten used to that. It's like that's just how life goes, you know? It's like you just like, of course there's like the body responds. So like, I don't know, like I released the video yesterday, I think, maybe. And then like I clearly slept for a short amount of time because like obviously something new and like it's like happening. It's a controversial topic or whatever. So it's like a little bit and it's like also a difficult subject that I could easily get a lot of stuff wrong, so like there's a little bit of stress involved and like clearly reflected in the body, but like overall it's like I'm just doing it and it's kind of like happening half on its own, which is probably not how I should be handling it now that I think about it again. It's like I should be maybe more choice involved in kind of not just letting things happen, but more consciously choosing to do them. But then on the other hand, it's like I did choose to do the video. I did choose to like engage with certain things, and I also don't regret getting kind of into it overall. Because for a long time I've stayed away, not strayed away. I stayed away from really speaking about things and like touching various topics and etc. And I figured it's not a good thing to have long term. I really should be able and willing to speak on topics and like get my opinion out there. Because like, however, you know, egotistical that may sound, I do think I have some things to say and I have a certain perspective that if I don't present things in the way I do present them, I don't know if anybody else will, and I suspect not really. And so if I have a subject that I am passionate about to a certain extent and I'm interested in, and then I can kind of run, like, throw it into my brain in a way for it to chew on. I find it funny with all like models, etc. It's like you prompt the model and it does things. I feel like my brain works similarly. It's like a useful kind of way to like conceptualize things. It's like just like throw it into the brain and then the brain kind of processes things, and it's in a way it's like maybe because I've gotten used to like working with ideas and like thinking through things, it somewhat became routine. where it's like I have a workflow that works for what I'm doing, and so when I can kind of select a topic and then like run that workflow, and of course it's not, there's no guarantees, so of course like I might end up just running into something I can't solve and it's like too difficult, or like the approach doesn't work, but like then it becomes a matter of devoting time and effort into it, and it just becomes kind of like a real calculation of is this something I want to, is this worth like taking the ideas and like following them to the conclusion? Should I just talk to people directly in like a, I don't know, like a server and then share the ideas that way, or is this like worth discarding completely? What kind of business? Because it's just like a simple calculation of how much time is this going to take to actually properly go through and consider, and because time's limited, like there's always a trade-off involved. There's no free you don't really get away with just not doing it if you want to get in a certain amount of level of depth, I guess. If you want to get to a certain level of depth, you just have to. You have to give it time. I mentioned earlier, it's like, because it struck me at some point that, like, the brain is a physical thing, and it takes time for the connections to like build and reinforce and modify. So it's like you legitimately, for working with ideas, like you legitimately need time for, like, even just for the physical processes in your brain to take care of, like, the physical part of thinking, which it's like when I first kind of considered and thought about it, it was like somewhat surprising because I never thought about it that way, but it seems that is literally how it works. It's just like there's a physical dimension to thinking, and so it's also been helpful in terms of figuring out, it's like, okay, it's like I've noticed that it does take me time to like get into concepts, and you know, the good old sleep on it, where it truly is that you don't grasp certain ideas until you look at them again after you've slept, because the brain just needs time to actually like physically reorganize the ideas inside of itself. It's very interesting to think about. It's like, it reminds you that you're not a detached voice floating in the void, talking to people through the medium of the internet, but rather actually an embodied human being that has a body, and, well, not just has a body, but is a body. Dawn is actually Polish AI confirmed. This is true. I'm a very advanced model from like the Poland labs or whatever. I don't know if Poland has an I don't know if Poland has like a dedicated. Actually no, I do know that there's like a model trained on a bunch of Polish stuff that like works for whatever. Like if you want to ask it questions about Polish law, for example, which is a notorious nightmare. Like it's better equipped theoretically to that horrible stack of papers than like a regular model would be, but to be honest, I couldn't tell you. I've not tried it yet. It is kind of interesting. A lot of stuff is kind of interesting. That's my general life problem. Like, a lot of stuff is exceedingly interesting, and then I only have one brain, and I only have a limited amount of time to go through all of it. And so I forever struggle with feeling like I'm not getting into something enough for what it should, like, for what proper consideration should look like. I need more time, you know? I need like a secondary brain, and then, but this is a slippery slope, because if I had a secondary brain, I'd just fill that to the brim, and then I'd want a third one. So it's like, there's just, I guess I'm reinventing teamwork from first principles, because then at some point people figure out, like, oh wait, so like if I don't do all of this myself manually, I can get it done faster. And it's like, well, I give up some control, and like some things get lost in translation, and it's no longer just what you want, but it's also what all the other people in the team want. But you just you take the trade-offs, I guess. It's alright. It's okay to have a little trade-off as a treat. Oh. Boom. Very peaceful. This is why I keep coming back to this game and for these streams. It's like the cozy little. It's a cozy little place. That's how I kind of think about it. It doesn't really matter that I keep just replaying the first couple sections over and over again, unless it detracts from my gamer cred for not being good enough at the video game, which is fine. It's alright. I don't know, I do in a way think I'm not that big of a gamer in terms of like the catalogue of games I've actually played. I tend to just stick to the same few games and then just play them for like thousands of hours. I'm gonna play this game, it looks good. Ori and the Blind Forest, it's called. I'd highly recommend it. It's not only good looking, incredibly so, but it's also mechanically interesting. Okay, third time's the charm. We got here the third time and I did not die. So this is a huge improvement over what happened previously. It's like in terms of... Oops, I forgot I don't have this unlocked yet. In terms of actually like nailing everything, I don't know. Maybe it's because I don't really care for like stories in games, so, but I think like this nails just about everything I want from a game. It's been quite the inspiration for me as well, for getting better at various things, because I was like, okay, if I'm thinking about the kind of end game for various skills I'm like, for like, if I wanted to get good at all the things and to be able to create something like this, I would need, I'd need to get better at so many different like skill sets and consider all of that. And so it's been like a big inspiration in that sense of like, I'd love to be able to do things on this level of quality, because I'm just really impressed by it. Like from the first time I saw it, I remember I was like surprised that this is a game because it looked so good. Boom. Sorry if that jump scared you. I forgot to notify. Oh. There's a boss, and I guess they could have had more bosses, because the bosses they do have are not particularly, like this guy just run around and click the left mouse button, and it's not like super engaging, but like that's not the focus of the game, so it's like fine. That's my copium for why the game I just said is basically gets everything right, and then I immediately start thinking about things it doesn't get right, so I have to backtrack on my statement. But as we all know, backtracking on your statement is not acceptable. It shows that you are stupid and weak and didn't think right the first time, so instead of backtracking on the first statement, you have to replace it with something that makes you seem like you were correct the whole time, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. It's like very important in terms of figuring out how to appeal to people. You wanna be like rule 1: never admit defeat, or like never admit when something went wrong. And it's also true. It just works. Like if you just get a lot of choices in terms of how you handle things, and then people genuinely can differ. Like the reaction of people differs to a comical degree depending on how you actually present things and how you go about, for example, receiving feedback and criticism. Because you can handle it in a way that's more like you can kind of fold to it, or you can. So like the easiest way to demonstrate this is you can just thank people for their opinion. Like, you don't have to counter and respond to everything in terms of like, oh, but I have this to say, and it's like, whatever. It's like, oh, no, thanks. This is like an interesting, important consideration that I didn't think about, and it's nice that you brought it up. Thank you. Very cool. And that just frees you from having to respond and like figuring out what you would say in response. Oh, there's a guy. You just have a guy that just helped you a little bit, and then you just accept it. And similarly with arguments you make and like acknowledgement of things. This was pretty important for the videos I've made recently, because I'm dealing with, like, as far as I'm concerned, and I don't know how clear this is from the first video, like the quick play versus casual one, but I consider both systems to be fairly flawed. One of them more so than the other, obviously, but both of them are flawed, so it's important in order to actually represent the conversation in a sensible fashion and to like make a point that goes beyond just like to not, even if I were, because I don't really pick a side strongly at the end, but even if I was to pick a side, I wouldn't want to do so ignoring opposing arguments or like not pointing out flaws and the trade-offs I'm explicitly taking. And so, and I think it in a large way it adds credibility to whatever you present to actually do it like that. Where he says like, okay, yeah, like look, here's the trade-offs I'm making, this is why I think they are worth it. Because you flag the possibility for everybody in the audience, which is pretty important. Because that's how you, I think, help other people form their own opinions as well. Is you flag various possibilities and important things. You like flag them clearly as this is kind of my opinion, this is what I think, or this is like why I'm... Because then the person, instead of having to like strongly disagree with you on whatever you are doing and like construct all that information, you are giving the person watching a very clear point to refer to and to disagree with you. You are kind of like steering how the... You're shaping even how even the people that disagree with you will kind of respond and think about what you've said. Because you are giving them spots to... This kind of goes back to the... What's it called? Kind of goes back to the path of least resistance question. It's like you're kind of giving people a path of least resistance argument they can take, or like a path of least resistance modification, so that what you've made fits what they care about. And so if you have something like that, you just it's 3 points. You can... And that also shapes the discussion, right? Because if those people disagree with you and use the kind of framing and understanding you've provided them in whatever you said, then those people also have the same kind of... Like, that's a tool they've been given for further discussions and for further thinking on the topic that they can just use for, like, whatever part of the conversation they want. Because it'll stick in their brain that you can talk about these things in this fashion. So it's like very interesting in terms of communication and like figuring out how to, like what you actually give to people and what is important. To be perfectly real with you, I entirely forgot how I got to this thought. I have no idea. There must have been a through line as to how how this happened, but I got lost along the way, so... Whoops. Unlucky. Almost got squished by that. I don't know, it's been a very interesting experiment. Just like running these videos and seeing what the response is and like how it happens. And like how people react to it. Like the discussions and the importance of things. And I just generally quite like, contrary to the I like talking about things, but more so, I think I need to be explicitly just more, I don't know, more passionate about things, which is funny to, it's funny to say that so dispassionately, but I guess that's just kind of how I am. So it's just like, I'm not just like, oh, I'm just interested in the conversation, but also, no, I do have a certain degree of like interest in, for example, TF2 itself, right? And not just TF2, but like the discussions surrounding it and whatever. And it's like, I'm not just speaking because the discussion is interesting. It's like, oh, look at me, I have the purest of intentions, and I could never do anything wrong. It's like, nah. Like, I'm interested in the debate, in a way. I'm interested in the result of it. I'm just not approaching it in a way that a lot of people are. Just because I'm interested in the conversation, I want it to happen in like the highest quality possible, and so what can I do to facilitate a higher quality of discussion? And that's kind of what I was trying to do. How well it'll work, I guess we'll see with time, because it might also just be optimistic thinking. I'm kind of testing that out as well a bit. It's like, how do people react? Does this make any sense? Is it too soft to be properly understandable? Does it give people the information? Does it give them like the setup? Will I see any like knock-on effects in other places? I don't know. It's kind of funny because like talking and like putting things out and like experimenting with this is free. You can just do it. But I didn't for the longest time. And not that I really regret not getting into stuff like this earlier, but because I know why I didn't. But can I really jump up here? I can. Because I know I didn't, but I do think it's important to have like get the stuff out there, see the reaction, see the feedback that you get. It's like that's a loop that you will never replace by like just talking in the abstract and the philosophical and the theoretical, whatever. You only get so much feedback from your own brain. Like with the idea I've just presented to me like earlier, not edgy, like that, like new modded, oh, like we could just mod an actual different game UI, like game finding UI into the game directly. It's like, would I have come up with that if I just like, I don't know, spent half a year thinking about it? Thinking about the topic, etc. I'm like, maybe I would, but maybe I wouldn't. And then is it worth just sitting on it instead of getting stuff out and then like getting feedback as other people are also thinking about things, and then you kind of compare notes and like you share the ideas and you get to a better understanding? I don't know. It might sound idealistic to some people to think about it that way, but alright, I think my brain is in critical condition. I need to push the emergency exit button, eject pilot seat or whatever, because yeah, I'm losing my train of thought hard. And I'm also starting to fall asleep, so I think we'll just save and stop here. It's been a pretty interesting stream. I didn't really know where I'm gonna go with like what I had in the title, because I just had like the vague blueprint or like vague bullet points to touch on. It's just kind of been, but this is kind of how these streams usually work. I just think about things, and when I have something that like kind of gets me going onto a topic, I just start like dumping all the things that come to my brain about it, and then figuring it out down the line, and then repeating myself several thousands of times, which undoubtedly has happened. So yeah, that's gonna be it for tonight. Thank you very much for chatting, for the idea. I saw you messaged me on Discord. I'll respond to that. Thank you very much again, and thank you for watching. Thank you for watching, thank you for sticking around, and see you later, if I do not explode in the meantime, which is always a possibility, but we remain optimistic for the future, alright? Okay, goodbye, good night, have a nice day, depending on your time zone. Bye bye.